We'll start with the question. Have any of you, and it's rhetorical question. Have you ever been in a situation where you thought you had, come on in, everything under control, only to discover there was just one small thing that you didn't think of that changed everything? Right? We can see the nods, we get it. So I'll start with a story. I've been told I'm a bit of a storyteller. I actually have 3 stories that I'm going to tell. Then we'll get into a little bit of technical stuff. So the first story that I have relative to this topic, grounding the bonding, is a URD reconductor job. So show of hands in the room, who here has been a lineman, electrical worker, name it, so I can get an idea. Okay, and then some of you are, some of you haven't, and that's okay. Like I said, I've been in the field. I'll explain more about that later, but most people understand like an overhead reconductor job. If you're going to do overhead, you'll typically go out, lay out your arms, move the phases out. You got to leave everything hot. You'll hot string, you'll bring in your new conductor, energize new conductor, start clipping, moving everything over. You get the idea. Underground is a little bit more challenging. So in this particular case, we had a large underground reconductor project, and this was an area near Chicago, kind of the suburbs. It was a very highfalutin area. This particular area was very affluential. People did not like to see utility workers. They certainly didn't want to see the green boxes in their yard, and they had since grown all these things around to obscure and hide all their equipment. They all backed up to a golf course. Everybody lived on golf courses where this was. So long story short, we ended up having 3 crews on this particular job. My crew was one of them. There was 2 other crews. And essentially what we had done to reconductor all this URD, and the first URD probably went in the 50s. So I know underground was new to a lot of people. It's been on a long time. It had been reconductored with direct bury cable sometime in the 70s. So now we're doing it a 3rd time. So what we had decided to do was put in conduit this time, which was very helpful. So we directional drilled all this conduit through the right of way, everything in there. And again, to keep our customers happy, what we chose to do, which is challenging work, is they just drilled through the right of way within the easement. And then we knew where the conduits were, and we picked places like within trees and bushes. And that's where we hand dug down, brought the conduits up, and we would set where the new transformer was going to go. So picture yourself on the single phase lateral at this point. So what we were doing was basically cutting in single phase transformers. We were trenching over, laying conduit to where the old transformer was. That was going to become the pedestal that would feed out from the houses. And the idea is we want to minimize outage time as much as possible, because it's a long time. So conduits are in, conduits there. All the conductor is pulled in, all the ground cable, we basically took the old direct bury concentric cable. We were abandoning it as we went. We were pulling in the new jacketed concentric neutral cable and working our way through. So the first incident, the first crew had an incident, and what we were doing is essentially working our way from the normal open back. So basically we would energize the old with the new and work our way back till we got to the feed, cut it off, and abandon that direct bury cable, and now it was fed with the new stuff. So the first crew that had an incident, good group of guys, they ended up cutting a hot cable, a hot elbow. So right inside the can, it was parked, but the other end was still energized from the fuse or the plug can. Took the green leaf cutters and cut it. A little bit of a flash. Nobody got hurt. There was no outage because they'd already transferred the over. No harm, no foul. They just kept going. We found out about it, my crew, when they showed up and said, "Hey, do you have any jaws for these green leaf cutters?" Ours, had a hole in them. And they're trying to tell me we cut ACSR. I'm like, dude, there's no overhead within 3 miles of where we are. There's no way. So you laugh it off, and we grind it out and cut it. All right, you're back in business. That's just how we work. Because where I grew up in this trade is I was not even in the blame, shame, and retrain group. We were in the blame and fire group. That's how everybody responded to any incident or accident. So I'm just being full disclosure of how we operated. We didn't tell anybody anything if we can get away with it. So I'll pause here and I'll come back to my story. Remind me where I am in my story. Somebody help me, right? Where am I in the story?
The relay.
Greenlee cutter. Okay.
You ground them out, they're good to go.
There you go. So let me ask this question. How many of you have been electrocuted before? Raise your hand. Now, I'm careful not to call you a liar. What's the definition of electrocution? The immediate death of electricity. How many of you have been electrocuted before? Raise your hand.
You can't. AEDs hurt.
All right, we'll come back to that later. All right. How many of you have ever received an electric shock? Right? Who's got a story of their first electric shock? My first one, I was probably 5 years old, plugging in something, and I stuck my finger between the prongs and plugged it.